That each and every one of us has a hidden edge, one that could unlock that next level of success in any area of life. Unfortunately, that edge is hidden, tucked away and buried deep underneath layers and layers. In this podcast, we'll uncover the hidden edge of high-performance leaders, executives, athletes, coaches, and authors to open your mind and stretch your frame of reality. If you know you want more, can do more, and be more, then this is the right podcast for you. Let's uncover your hidden edge.
Welcome to the show. I am extremely excited to have special guest Steve Spiro on the show. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here. Really honored to be on the same screen with you, sir.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. I love the topic, love the edge that you have that we're going to dive into, because I would say from, the shy introverted piece, a lot of people feel that way and can't get out of their own way and break out of their shell necessarily. So let's dive right into your hidden edge. I know it's growing up as a shy introverted kid, having some learning issues as well as dyslexia. So let's dive in, give some backstory in that, and then really let's dive into how you lean into that supposedly disadvantage or weakness and really now are a master connector and speaker, all of those great things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, it's been a crazy journey, Jeff. I mean, like you said, I mean, I didn't even know I had the disability. I just knew when I was, when they had me reading out loud at class, I would stutter and, my ears would turn beet red. I was super embarrassed, humiliated, honestly. I was trying to read. I just realized I couldn't comprehend. It was crazy. And so then, getting bullied as well. And, just back, and this was not cyberbullying back then. I'm a little older than that, but there was some bullying going on. And yeah, what it did is it made me go into a shell. And I know we're going to probably touch on the connecting aspect of it, but, being this sort of person that just wanted to protect myself from other people, just basically. And then I wound up figuring out I had some talent, wound up going into advertising. My dad had a liquor store, so those entrepreneurship was in my blood, but dissuaded me from that. And I wound up going into advertising marketing, went to high school and college for that. Got out of college, couldn't get a job, start a company, and had a really illustrious career in advertising. And then, started training the martial arts since '83. I think that was a way I could kind of maybe break some barriers, no pun intended, in that realm. And, so I was doing that a lot, and I had got involved in real estate and rental property stuff. So I think, I was the ultimate busy professional, but in my case, yes, I was proud, but I also used that to block people from me and just to kind of protect from being hurt. And, there were all this ridicule and all these things that I dealt with for years. And I didn't even think about it. It wasn't something I was conscious, but I just, people would be like, hey, let's get together. And I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. I just can't. And I used it as a way to kind of keep my guard up and keep people away. So, yeah. And that was kind of me for many, many, many years, for sure.
Do you remember kind of the first instance of being bullied or speaking up in class and having that experience? Do you remember when that first kind of occurred?
I think like a lot of people, I think women, if they remember the pain they go through in pregnancy, they wouldn't have a second child. So I think when there's painful situations, we have a tendency to suppress or try to forget them. I do remember though, a few things I remember, on the bullying side, my last name is Spiro, obviously. And so I was very awkward and uncoordinated, and probably a lot of that had to do with my self-esteem. And, my dad I learned out later, he was also picked on as a kid, and he did teach me how to fight and all those rites of passages that we often go through as when we're a young kid. I didn't have any of that stuff. I think he played baseball with me one time. But one thing that my whole, the neighborhood, my nickname, again, Spiro, was Spaz. That was my nickname. And, think about how that would affect somebody's self-esteem growing up, them believing that they were sort of a spaz.
Right.
I do remember on the flip side of it, going to a sleepaway camp for one summer. And there was nobody from the neighborhood that was there.
Okay.
And I remember reinventing myself and being a completely different person. And it was such a great experience that nobody knew that I was called spaz back at home. No one knew that I was uncoordinated. Nobody knew that I was, had a low self-worth. And I was able to kind of just be somebody new, and it was awesome. And it showed me something,
Yeah. How did you, I'm interested, how did you apply that lesson then as you got older, right?
It just showed me that, you could put yourself around different people in other industries, other arenas, and not have to take the old baggage of what you had or were or did into this new situation, because not everybody knows those things that you've done or been or who you are. So I think it's great. And, obviously I don't forget the past, it shaped who I am, but I also don't have to live in the past. And today I could be a new person. I could reinvent myself. It's going to be I believe who we are is based upon, of course, the books you read and the people you associate with. But one of the important lessons I've learned over time is that we could reinvent who and what we are. We don't have to be stuck in the mud with who that old person was. So I think it was a great lesson. And, going into the martial arts was a chance for me to reinvent who I was. Although I did take some of the old insecure, broken person that I was into that, but it did give me a place to kind of start fresh.
Gotcha. Yeah. I personally, I was a very shy, introverted kid, and sports gave me that way out as well. Probably very similar to the martial arts, where all of a sudden it's a different playing field. I luckily was pretty good at sports, so I could excel, and that created a different circle, right? And so true. So obviously being bullied growing up, that must have built some resiliency, some tenacity, some hard work. Like, how did you morph that into then being successful in advertising and having a career and doing those sort of things? What was that process like? Because I love how you mentioned we can constantly evolve. We can constantly have another iteration of ourselves. We don't need to be stuck in the past. So many people, though, that's like an anchor, right? They can't get past it. They can't break free from it, right? They're trying to, but they can't. What were some ways that you kind of built that process as you moved forward into your career?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the martial arts, and I think probably like sports did for you, Jeff, the martial arts was a big development area for me. And one of the things that I learned in the martial arts is if you outwork people, you will succeed. And I want to taking that, doing that, taking up that mantle, so to speak. I didn't miss a class. If I was sick, I showed up anyway. It was probably not good by health standards today, but I showed up anyway. And I said, I'll just watch class. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just put my uniform, my gi on.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I'll just do the first part of the class. And by the time the class was done, I did the whole class, but I just did things that were better, not better. I did things more than the average person. Mm-hmm. And I saw myself succeed. But more than anything, I earned my self-respect. I started to see that I could be different. I could, I fell in love with myself. That sounds kind of weird, but I did. I said, you know what? You're great. You're awesome. Right. And so through working, I did that. I applied that in many areas of my life, is outworking the average person. And I learned that, I can, it was a good place for me to build up that self-confidence. Right. So yeah, that was a big one. And then the other thing I learned is on the resiliency side, I got my nose busted. I was telling this to a group of people the other day when I was doing some speaking.
Okay.
I learned that, my sensei, who was about 6'5", 300 pounds, African-American, big, menacing dude.
Right.
He was and he would come at you like a freight train. And I panicked. I ducked, and I ducked right into his knee coming up in a roundhouse kick and busted my nose really bad. The nose was sort of on the side of the face. And I took the nose and I just straightened it, because I'd been to the emergency room a bunch of times from stitches here, stitches here, stitches here. And I'm like, it's going to be a 5-6 hour. And I know that they don't put a cast on the nose.
Right.
So I straightened my nose and I went back to class and I said, let's go. Like I just said I was going to do things that I'm just going to fight through it. And one thing that I learned is I'm still short guy, not a huge frame,
Gotcha.
and I got up against big guys and I said, all right, I'm going to develop that one thing that will be my strength. And in my case, it was developing a reverse punch and being able to just, no matter what, these guys, no matter what, they knew it was coming. I got a reverse punch in on their solar plexus or their rib cage. And it'd be funny. We'd be in the locker room after class and everyone would be showing off their red tattoo that they got from me from getting punched in a side or in the stomach or by the solar plexus. But that lesson there was, okay, you develop that one thing. I think there's a book on it called The One Thing.
Yep.
Great book. And I developed the one thing. And then I said, I'm going to take that into the business world. And the other thing I learned is, I made black belt in 3.5 years. My wife took her 10 years, and we had a guy in class who's the most uncoordinated guy in the world. He did it in 20. Okay. And I learned that but all of us made it. The ones that didn't make black belt, they quit.
Right.
So I learned if you stay steady, you do the work, you follow your sensei, you don't quit, you're going to win. You're going to succeed. And that was a big, influencer for me in terms of success, because there's a tendency, right? I mean, there's a tendency for us to kind of give up quickly and to, if it's not going, especially with the younger folks, right? It's just, they're used to, right? They see movies today and, it looks like it goes from the struggle to victory in like 2 hours in a movie. And they think it should be 2 hours for them to see success. Right. And it's not like that. You got to go through the suck, SUC, to get to success, the first 3 letters of success, right? Yep. You got to go through the stuff. So it's I've learned about being persistent and grit and determination and developing that one thing that's gonna get you to succeed. And those I tried to translate in every part of my life.
I love that, and I love how you earned your self-respect just from going in and doing it consistently day after day. And I love how you said you fell in love with yourself, because that is something that is so lost as adults, as just human beings. I know I've taken clients through an exercise of just staring at themselves in the mirror and telling themselves, I love you. And some struggle with that process because we never say it to ourselves, right? We're always our harshest critic, and we always continue to pound ourselves over the head with the hammer, right? When we don't do things that we think we should do or don't follow through on our words. So I love that piece. And I love how you said, hey, you made it 3 years, your wife 10, another person 20. And it's just a consistency. If you dedicate yourself to it, eventually you'll be successful. The issue is we just don't know when. And to your point, we're fed 6-pack abs in 6 minutes. Like, you can do this that quick.
The magic pill.
The magic pill, right? That's going to solve everything. No, you need to commit. You need to decide, cut off all other things, and you will eventually get there. You don't know when. And
the other piece of it that I kind of touched on, but maybe not enough, is the power of what you do have control of, right? So one of the things, the reason I made black belt 3.5 versus 10 and my wife is I was much more dedicated. I put in more work. I was consumed by it, quite frankly.
Okay.
And so following a sensei, following, your instructor, but also doing the extra work is going to get you there faster, right? It's getting those 10,000 hours, AKA Malcolm Gladwell, right? 10,000 hours in quicker. It's going to get you success, right? And you can, but yes, in the long haul, if you don't quit, you win.
Yeah. And I love how power of what you can control. You can control your effort, right? The work you putting in extra effort, extra work. If you want to condense that time range, you got to put in extra, right? And then you can condense it. And so many times people forget, they see that or hear that 10,000 hour and they're like, well, if I put an hour a day in for how many years, then I'll get there. Well,
Yep.
what if you put 10 hours in a day? You'd get there so much quicker, and you would just exponentially, increase your level that you raise as you go through the process.
No doubt.
Yep. Yep. No, I love those points. So obviously coming from a shy introverted, being bullied, having some learning challenges as you grow up. Now connecting with others, right? You had mentioned, hey, for some time in your life, when people would invite you to do things, now you didn't want to, right? You kind of had this, you built this layer around you so you wouldn't get hurt. Now fast forward to where you're at, right? Obviously you run a master connector show. You've got a ton of connections. We connected. You've connected me with other people in your network. You now speak. Take me through that kind of journey, because I love to start where it was, where the pain is, and now seeing a product that it will never be finished, but now that you're speaking, doing things that you're passionate about, would love to hear that side of the journey.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, so, I've learned in life, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And through a really good friend that I worked with in advertising at the time, he introduced me to a very successful entrepreneur.
Okay.
And this man who I was with this weekend, it was just, he had the ball of wax. He had, time and money. He's just extremely successful. But the biggest thing that impacted me, that two things. One is he had peace, absolute peace. And then the other thing was he was touching lives. He was making impact on lives. And so I was really intrigued, chased him. He became a mentor to me, and he still to this day has that role. And it's been amazing and very transformative. He got me on a path of self-development, books and audios and networking, because I was growing, but not at the capacity I needed to. I knew that there was something that I needed to change. I needed to be a better version of myself. I knew I needed to. I just didn't know how to do it.
Gotcha.
And so he became that GPS, so to speak, if you will, right? I remember the old days of having the Hangstrom maps and the stress level of trying to get around and having a GPS in my life. Well, anyway, the journey has been an amazing journey, but it's been a long journey, right? Because, you don't change overnight sometimes. And I didn't. And I had a lot of reprogramming that had to happen. But one of the things he did is he challenged me. He said, listen, I want you to meet 3 total strangers every day. Now, maybe if you're in the Midwest or the South where people are super nice, that's okay. But I'm in the New York area.
Right.
I just recently moved to Connecticut, but before that I was in New York, and, just 25 minutes outside the city. If you talk to a stranger in New York, they're going to shoot you. If you're a kid, your parents told you don't talk to strangers, they'll kidnap you. Right. So it's just a different thing, but it got me outside of myself. And over time, I started to become, better at networking, but there was still that blockage.
Okay.
Eventually, and it took years and years, and I'll I don't think we'll have enough time to get into it, but I wound up through reading a certain book and going to a therapist for 5 sessions, silent meditation treat, all those things had a factor that really helped me to find peace within myself. And now I said, all right, I'm good. And then I said, you know what? So to be full disclosure, full transparency, this gentleman that I'm talking about, who was amazing, I was always comparing myself to him and feeling like I fell short. And I was big on the compare game. And I always was never good enough. And I started to realize, you know what? I'm good enough. I'm a first-class version of myself. I'll be a second-class version of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? But I have challenges or weaknesses I've dealt with. Maybe that could be valuable for people. And I started leading with those weaknesses, right? So I have a talk that I give, and it's, in our weakness, there's power. And I started to say, when I started to share some of those vulnerabilities and those weaknesses with people in, conversations like you and I had, Jeff, when we did a Zoom call, I found that the connections were powerfully meaningful. And we connected at a deeper level versus just, I like to call it the "what do you do" dance when you connect with somebody. Hey, what do you do? Yeah, okay, what do you do? And what's good referral? No, let's get into who we are as people. Right. And I found the connection was strong. And then the second thing I found is the more I leaded with my weakness, because I was hiding them, I was trying to prevent from being exposed.
Mhm.
From those weaknesses, those insecurities. I had more hangups than the phone company. Okay. I was really a messed up guy for years. The more I led with it, the more powerfully confident I got. So it was pretty cool. And so it's been amazing leading with vulnerabilities, leading with weaknesses. And today, as you stated, I think I'm up to 18,000 contacts on my phone, and I'm somewhere around 22 LinkedIn connections, 22,000 LinkedIn connections. And it's so cool that this shy introvert kid that was so messed up, insecure, could speak to anybody. And, I speak to, at times thousands of people, and it's pretty awesome that I'm able to do that. And I do that not because I am this, oh, look at me. No, because I want to be a blessing. My mission on this planet is to be the light, to uplift, inspire, and encourage people, and hopefully show them, listen, if this messed up kid, shy introverted kid, bullied kid from the Bronx can do something like this, you can too.
I love that story. Thanks for sharing and leading with weakness, vulnerability, right? Because you build a deeper connection. And I said it, and I think, not to generalize, but men especially, it's more difficult to have those deeper conversations. It's about, hey, how are the kids, or the Yankees, or
Yes,
I'm a Phillies fan, right? Like that's all we're talking about. It's not about stuff that truly should matter and we should have conversations about. So I love that piece and how you do that. And listen, we all have skeletons in the closet. We all have things and issues and insecurities. And I think so many times we think nobody else has it. It's only me. And that's just so far from the truth, right? I could probably throw a baseball and hit a couple people that have the same things or go through the same issues right now. And it's so incredibly powerful when you understand that, and you can kind of say, okay, I'm going to lead with that. And here's who I am, because to your point, that builds confidence because you have nothing you're hiding from. Hey, here's who I am. Here's, take it or leave it. This is me. And that's a great place to come from. I do want to ask you this question. So I know public speaking, you're moving into speaking and doing that as a passion. How was that the first time you did that, or first time you stepped on a stage, right? Coming from your background, because people are scared to death to speak in public, right? And listen, I still get butterflies. I just did it a couple of weeks ago, and I have a system, though, a process I go through and just go with it. What was that experience like the first time you did that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So, you're right. They say that it's more of a fear than death.
Right. Speaking, right. People would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
And I was one of those guys a while back, but when I found that when I got to speak from the heart, when it was things that I was experiencing, they were easier than trying to memorize a speech. And so the beginning, early stages of my speaking, I guess, you take it when I was in the martial arts, and I was asked to give a class, and I saw my sensei, my instructor, do the class, and I saw his mannerisms and what he would say and how he would, how he'd say it. And that eventually got a picture of that. And I started to do that. But I wasn't giving some kind of canned speech. I was just going through things that was inside of me. And then the other piece of it is when I started to, and the arenas, if you will, that I was speaking on were much smaller and have grown, right? Mm-hmm. But I also realized that the more you pour into yourself, the more you can overflow, and it's a lot easier to speak and to share your heart when you're filling it with good stuff. So it's another big part of what has been for me. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, how did I overcome the fear? I'll let you know when it happens, right? It's still there, but it's a lot more simpler because I know why I'm doing it, right? Which is to really be a light, to inspire, speaking as much as from the heart as I can. I don't believe in scripting stuff, so I'm just trying to speak, and I also know that part of my vulnerabilities, my weakness is that I'm going to mess up, and I give myself grace. So if I stutter a little bit when I speak, so be it. If I say a little bit more than I should, so be it. I'm going to work on not doing those things, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. When I started to do that, feel better about myself and not really judge myself.
Mhm.
Speaking was a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I love that fact. And when you speak from the heart and it comes from your energy, your soul, and you're looking to make an impact, I mean, people feel that, right? And I'm right in line with you. I mean, I'll have key points I want to touch on that I kind of map out, but I don't type anything down. It's all coming from, just what I practice on myself, and then it often, authentically goes out to who I'm speaking to. So love those pieces for sure. So Steve, I've loved the conversation. Where can people connect with you, follow you? Where can they find you if they want more information?
Absolutely. So, I'm continuing to grow a speaking career. So if they're interested in having me as a speaker, I love to speak with mid-sized companies, large companies that have a sales team. So, one way to find me to talk to me and see what I do as a speaker, go to spiro-global.com.
Okay.
But generally, LinkedIn is the best vehicle for me as far as the social media tool. I do have a YouTube channel. I do have some of the other platforms, but and another easy way is stevespiro.com. Just go to stevespiro.com, so STEVESPIRO.com, and they can go and all of the links to the YouTube and to the LinkedIn, and to the speaking site is all there. So if nothing more, stevespiro.com is the easiest way.
Awesome. Steve, thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you so much for the honor.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to your Hidden Edge podcast. You are now part of the movement, part of a tribe who's on a mission to uncover their hidden edge. We're stronger together, so please share this. Show up with one person in your network that you want to help. Together, we can empower others, and connected, we can make a dent in the universe.